Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and as usual, we are brought to you by Coach's Corner U. Use code podcast300 to save $300 off of your lifetime access to the platform. As I mentioned before, we are changing the pricing model and we're going to a subscription base, but if you register now, you will continue to maintain your lifetime access for life. So that's $50 for lifetime access to what is currently almost 200 hours of continuing education lectures and savings off of all of our CEU accredited courses. We're also sponsored by TC Nutrition, Barefoot Shoes, and Bacon and Barbells. And I actually just realized today that I never mentioned Master Athletic Performance, which is our coaching company. So we're also sponsored by Master Athletic Performance. Go to www.masterathletic.com if you want to work with any of our coaches for any of your goals, training, or nutrition related. Today, I'm joined by one of our Master Athletic Performance coaches, Jaden Lacaria. Jaden, welcome.
How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So Jaden and I are going to hop on here and do a bit of a Q&A. But first, Jaden, what's been up, man? It's been a while. We had you on the podcast a while back, and you've been up to a lot. Got your pro card, off season. What's up?
Everything's going really good. Just trying to optimize these next couple months left in my off season and get ready for prep. So I'm about 23 weeks out right now from my pro.
Oh, you picked a show?
Yeah, Texas Pro.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So I'm pumped about that. That's gonna be it's gonna be fun. And like the biggest thing is, I'm kind of it's they say when you go from the NPC to IFPB or let's say like college, NFL, or any sport, you're back at the bottom of the totem pole, and you have to work your way back up. But I feel like I've been able to make substantial progress this offseason. And, the feedback I've gotten from everyone and from my coach has just been like, hey, like, you're not lacking the size like that you think you are. Like, you've added the tissue. Like, you're big enough. Like, you'll be completely fine, especially with your shape and structure. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's especially in that 212 division. You're like, what was your stage rate when you went pro?
I was like I had to weigh in at 176 and a half. I was probably on stage like 179, 178.
Yeah, which is crazy. So you've got, 30 pounds, 30 plus pounds that you can grow into that class. I'm only imagining you 30 pounds heavier. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. No, if I can max the cap out, or when I do, that's going to be nuts. I mean, this has been the heaviest I've ever been in my life. I'm 230, so it's definitely taken some time to getting, adjusted to, but it's not like bad body composition, it's not like I'm just bloated and fat, so.
No, you're definitely not. I could only imagine how hard it's going to be to tie your shoes when you're that big.
Oh, yeah, I could imagine, like, I think of guys like, Flex Lewis or Derek Lunsford when they were, at the very cap of 212, and they were just huge, so.
Well, I'm even thinking of like Sean Clarita. Like Sean's what, 5'2"? So he's like an inch taller than you?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Sean is like probably like 3-4 inches shorter than me. Probably
yeah,
3. Yeah.
I couldn't help it. All right. So with that said, you're deep into your off season. So we'll just get it started with the first question that we have is, what are some of the best ways that you've found to manage your appetite in the off season?
For me, I mean, this is the highest my food's ever climbed in an off season. So it's been difficult for me to be able to kind of just manage my appetite some days. The things I've done that's really helped me though would just be aware what sets well with me and what doesn't. So like if something doesn't set well with me, I'll just tell my coach and be like, hey, look, like this isn't working. And we work pretty collaboratively, the same as I do with my athletes, which is really nice. So like for example, my carbs were cream of rice post workout and pre workout. Then I had it in meal one with my eggs and some whey. I just got to the point where the cream of rice volume, the food volume was too high with that food specifically, and I was bloated, felt uncomfortable, and I was having a ton of acid reflux. So we've swapped foods out. So like now pre-training, I'm doing Rice Krispies, like the cereal. So rice-based cereal, and then that's worked great. And then I swapped out the cream of rice in one meal for oats. So we've made some adjustment with that. And then like if there's like a certain like if I was using too fatty of a beef at one point, so we were doing 85-15, which is what we used in prep.
Hmm.
and we just kind of kept it in. But it got to the point where the food volume overall was so high. That meal specifically with the extra fat from that beef was making me like kind of like sick almost. So
Okay.
we got a leaner cut beef, and it's helped. So it just comes down to paying attention to your digestion.
So when you say stuff like, "Oh, it doesn't sit well with me," what are some things that you kind of evaluate? Is it just like the weight of the food in your stomach? Is it like you mentioned reflux? Like, what are some other things that you look for to know that a food sits well?
So the biggest thing I'll pay attention to is like when I eat the meal, how do I feel after? Do I feel super distended? Is it easy to eat and like is it going down smoothly? So like those are some signs I pay attention to. Then I also just think honestly in my head like, okay, hey, like I have two more meals like this, or am I able to tolerate this same kind of food? Get this food down. Like how is it gonna make me feel? So those are things that
Mhm.
cross my mind. Um, and then along with that, honestly, it's just like how how is this affecting my gut health overall? So if I think like, hey, there's too much sugar in my post workout meal or pre workout meal, this is going
Mhm.
to inhibit me to eat. So like yesterday, I used this is a great example. I trained quads yesterday, and my training intensity is always pretty high. So had a great training session. Uh, Everything went smoothly, but we've added intra carbs, so we use a cluster dextrin intra
Mhm.
in my shake. And I noticed, I think it was the mixture of just training hard and being hotter in the gym than usual since it's not as cold right now. And then just that session and the cluster reductions mixed together just kind of made me sick and nauseous. So when I
Mm.
came home, I wasn't able to get the rest of my food, and I just had one more meal. And then just had one more meal after. I couldn't even eat just because I felt nauseous and sick. So like me and my brain, okay, hey, I know kind of what causes this. It was just from the training in general with the cluster actions. I just were kind of upsetting my stomach. So now I'm like more aware going into a session, like, hey, these I just need to pay attention to this a little better.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for me, the biggest thing when it comes to appetite, there's two things that I look at. So, number one, we have to make sure that we're eating enough calories to
Hmm.
support growth. So, if you're switching out a food like an 85-15 beef to say a 95-5, well,
Yeah.
there's calories within that have to be made up, right? Because you took
Hmm.
out probably 10 grams of fat.
Yeah.
So in the off season, when we're talking about high food volumes, for me, it typically comes down to eating a higher carb, lower fat, just
Yeah.
to make sure that digestion speed stays there.
Hmm.
So replacing some of the fats with carbohydrates for me is a big plus.
Yeah.
Then, as you mentioned, the food types. So I rely heavily with my clients on fruit
Hmm.
because I think fruit digests so easily. It's a great source of micronutrients and fiber, which is essential for digestion,
Hmm.
but it's also easy to get fruit down, and
Yeah.
it's
It's not
easy to
hard.
eat.
Yeah.
You go with like even a dehydrated mango or a dehydrated date. Like these are things that are very, very easy for us to eat and still have a high micronutrient content. So I tend to opt for more nutrient dense foods, things that you don't have to eat as high of a volume.
Hmm.
So I'll even add honey to the meals. I'll even add, maple syrup, fruit juice. So even if the fruit volume gets too high, cool, we'll go to an unsweetened fruit juice.
Yeah.
And that's something that Stan Efferding advocates a lot for in his vertical diet. But so I look at the fat content and then the food volume,
Hmm.
and opting for some more carb dense, lower volume type stuff, and also some liquid nutrition. You mentioned the intra carbs. Honestly, intra carbs for most people is the easiest way to get in calories. It's like you don't have to worry about anything. You're just you have 50 grams of carbs during your training. That's 50 grams. That's 200 calories that you don't even have to think about. You can just drink.
Yeah.
But the challenge does come down to digestion if you're training at a super high intensity. I don't know about you, but when I prescribe intra workout carbs, I try to keep it to less than 50 grams of carbs per liter of water,
Hmm.
because at
Yeah.
that 50 gram of carb, you need enough water to absorb the carbohydrates. And if you don't have enough, that's when you get into GI issues.
Yeah.
But if you're having 100 grams of carbs during training, trying to drink 2 liters of water over the course of your training session,
It's a lot.
that's unless you're in prep,
Yeah.
that's a lot. In
Yeah.
prep, you could just drink water forever,
Yeah. No. 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 It's definitely doable.
but
But
in an off season, it is tough. Have
yeah,
you?
and I don't take
Sorry.
I don't take athletes over usually 50 grams of carbs with an
Yeah.
intra. Most of the time it's like 25 grams. Between
Yeah.
that range, 20 to 25. But for me, like I said, I'm at 40 grams right now. And I feel okay. It just some days is like I said, it's been problematic. But we've been trying to find ways to get more food in, just more calories. So that's kind of
Do
why
you
we resorted to that.
do you ever reduce protein in the off season?
Protein's actually climbed a little bit so far throughout this off season. So in the prep, it was like 150 grams of beef or chicken.
Okay.
Um,
Per
this
meal?
off season, yeah, per meal, yeah. This off
Yep.
season, it's been 200 grams, but not immediately.
Oh,
It's
wow.
gradually climbed. It was like 150, 180, 200,
Yeah.
etc. So it's went up.
I find in the off season, especially because carbohydrates are so protein sparing, we can kind of get away with a little bit less
Hmm.
protein per meal to bias those higher calories because protein is going to slow gastric emptying and make that digestion a little bit slower. So I found for my clients
Yeah,
who are struggling with appetite, listen, we got to get those calories in. So let's pull down the protein and replace those calories with carbohydrates. That can also help. Do you find I've also found red meat to be one thing that like in an off season when food is high, even though red meat's really calorie dense, it seems to just be harder for people to digest. So I've even gone to like, okay, instead of beef, we'll do like chicken with olive oil. And I
yeah.
think that tends to
Well, yeah. I
help
mean,
as well.
that olive oil is good too for like cholesterol and just keeping all that stuff in a better position throughout the off season. As food gets higher, and another thing too, which is good for having that the added fats and everything. So um, that's not a bad way to pivot either. You know what I mean? Versus like having a ton of red meat that's causing just
Yeah.
digestion to slow down and then some distension. Like for me, like if I do more than one red meat meal, it's a problem. But in prep, of course, it's amazing because your body's like depleted and you want those fats, and it feels like great eating meals like that.
It's funny how like just the amount of stress that's on your system can affect how you tolerate certain foods. And then also like the volume of those foods within a meal can definitely make a difference. Like I know for me, if I'm having 50 grams of cream of rice, it's going to digest a lot differently than if I have 100.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like my cream of rice, every meal was 150 grams, and it
Yeah,
just
you said that. I'm like, bro, are you eating out of a bucket?
yeah. No, it's high. So um that's why we pivoted to cereal and some oats because
Fuck, man.
that was a lot. Yeah.
You like I picture you sitting in front of that bowl of cream of rice like a kid at the beach with like his sand bucket and a trowel.
Yeah.
Like,
Like a huge spoon. Yeah.
yeah, fuck. All right, that was great. Next question was, how do you handle things that interrupt your routine and cause you to fall off? This was a tough question for me because we want to put our clients in a position where they never actually fall off. And
Hmm.
I say that from like a place of privilege, right? Like we don't neither you or I have kids. Neither
Yeah.
you or I have, very grateful to have healthy people in our family. We're not dealing with emergencies. We pretty much just, coach our clients, live our life, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And even when things happen, we've been doing this so long that we know how to pivot.
Hmm.
Like I know that sometimes you'll train at like 10 p.m. at night.
Yeah. I mean, it just
And
happens sometimes. Yeah.
yeah. And, sometimes for me, I'll just wake up at 5 and go straight to the gym. It's like, is that the best idea for hypertrophy? No, but I'm going to get my training in.
Yeah.
That's a non negotiable for me.
Yeah.
But the fact is, a lot of our clients come to us with a different skill set. They may not have the ability to pivot or know what's possible in order to manage the things they need to manage. And that's why they rely on us as coaches. Sorry.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing that crosses my mind is like, okay, what did we do? Like, how can we better prepare for the unpreparable?
Yeah.
Right. Um, the next thing that I looked at with how to handle routine is let's not try to do everything all at once right away. I
Hmm.
think that's something that people try to do is like, okay, they fell out of the routine. Now they want to jump right back into what they were doing beforehand.
Yeah.
That's just not possible for most people, right?
No, and
That all or
I mean,
nothing
there's two
mentality.
examples that come to my head, kind of like immediately with that. It's like, unfortunately, this has been like a really rough season with people getting sick, especially like getting the flu.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've had like a decent amount of people coming to be sick who I coach, and they're, most of them are bodybuilding clients. So they're like worried to death because they're losing weight because they've been sick and they're dropping weight and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing muscle, I'm getting small. I'm like, no, like you're sick, like you're not able to eat your meals, like you're losing water, you're losing glycogen, like it's not like you're
Yeah.
pulling off tissue. I'm like, your weight will
Hmm.
be back up to where it was in, a week and a half.
Hmm.
So once we get them healthy, weight comes back up, everything's good to go, training intensity starts climbing again. And some of those guys want to hop right back into their immediate food volume. I'm like, look, like, no, I'm scaling your food back as tad so we can get your appetite back to where it needs to be. You then bump your food back up in a week or two. I'm like,
Yep.
I want you to be able to just let's get all 5 or 6 of your meals in. That's a
Yep.
win. Get you feeling okay, hydrating, training. Like, don't think everything has to be 100% off the rip because you're sick.
Hmm.
And then another one's just like when, someone, like you said, they fall off or they might just follow a routine, they'll not train that week or miss some days or whatever comes up,
Travel. Yeah.
travel, and they're like, what workout should I do today? I'm like, whatever one you would do today, let's say you didn't do your back and bicep workout from last week and it's supposed to be done today on Tuesday, still do your back and bicep workout today, or
Hmm.
even if it's your first day back, do what you normally do. I'm like, don't worry about what you missed. Control what you can control now in the present moment, and that's all you can do. I'm like, worrying about what you did in the past is not going to be able to benefit you in any way right now.
Yeah, I really like the way you worded that because it shows that your ability as a coach to remain calm and provide solutions can actually help the client realize that it's not as big of a deal as they think it is in their head. And I
Yeah.
think having a coach who is calm and stoic gives the client a lot of calm in that situation. And,
Hmm.
we're very fortunate that we work with some people who are very highly driven, right? You
Yeah.
can't fault someone for wanting to be great.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, that desire to be great will negatively impact their ability to follow the plan. It's like, I want to be
Yeah.
so great and I want to follow the plan, but it's going to kick them in the teeth eventually.
Hmm.
So if we're able to pull them back and slow them down, they can actually slingshot back up further than they were,
Yeah. I mean,
even
the
if it
thing
was
is,
being sick.
yeah, and the thing is too, it's like as a coach, like there's really nothing that tops having an athlete who wants to do everything correctly and wants to
Right.
be coached. I don't care what level they're at. They could be a lifestyle client who wants to lose weight, or someone who wants to get on the bodybuilding stage and earn the pro card. So
Mhm.
just ability to execute and just being like present each and every day and like communicating and checking in on time and doing all the things that like you ask and nailing it every week. And then like you literally, it blows my mind. Like there's people, I mean, you can, relate to this obviously. Like there's people you coach who will check in and like visually every week you see them change. And
Absolutely.
it can be a lifestyle client or it can be a bodybuilding client, whatever it is. And you can like see big changes. And then I see people who I've been coaching for some time and they'll check in. And it's like they're not really changing because they're missing, total of 6 meals throughout the week. They're not doing other cardio sessions. There's gaps that are constantly there every single week. And like we do our best as a coach to navigate them through that. But I
Hmm.
mean, like the proof's in the pudding. Like if you put the work in, you execute, things are going to happen.
The quote that I always come back to, and whenever I talk with a client about this, is consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about doing most of the things right most of the time for a really long time.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself relieves a lot of tension on that client because they realize that, if they do miss a meal, it's not the end. Like, it is not the end of the world to miss a meal once in a while. It
Yeah.
is not the end of the world to push a workout back a day.
Hmm.
Like, the body has no idea what 7 days are.
No.
So your
No.
desire to get your 5 workouts in 7 days, rain, sleet, snow, shine, whatever. Yeah, your body doesn't give a
Yeah.
fuck. It
Yeah.
only understands stress. And if you stress yourself out about these little things, you're going to feel that a lot more than a missed workout or a missed meal.
Yeah. And I tell, my clients, the guys I coach or girls I coach who want to, turn pro and actually have a good career in bodybuilding. I said that is the difference between you and someone who's an Olympian is just time and consistency. That's literally
Yeah.
it. I'm like, there's nothing else that's in between you and them. You will be there because you're doing all the correct things. It's just a matter of doing these things day in, day out, months and years on end, and you'll be there. So when you kind of tell them like that and they see it like that, it creates like this space for them to be calm and be like, oh, like I'm actually fine where I'm at. Versus like,
Do you Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead,
I was like,
finish.
versus like comparing themselves to like guys who are at the pro level or people who are at the top or people who have more experience than them even. So it's like you'll get there, just run your own race and focus on that, and like you'll always be where you should be.
Have you seen a change in the way that your clients respond to your coaching now that you're a pro? Because I could see that feedback coming from somebody who is where they ultimately want to be, hitting a lot different.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, the clients I've had that were with me before I turned pro, we still have a really good relationship, and they still respect my opinion just as
Hmm.
much as they did before. Like I don't know if it's really changed much. I mean, they always express how like thankful they are that I coach them and that I give them the feedback I do. I'm always big on like sending voice notes like to responses, breaking things down so they can hear my tone of voice.
Hmm.
Uh, but I do have clients who express like, hey, like I'm super excited for you. Like, I can't wait to see you compete. And like they'll always root me on from my end, like of as an athlete. But I think they're thankful for my guidance and critiques, because a lot of coaches, man, like this is a thing, like and as a, how I do anything is how I do everything. Like if I'm bodybuilding, I want to be the best in the world. If I'm coaching, I want to be the
Hmm.
best in the world. Like there's just no in between.
Hmm.
So like I've seen the level of coaching that some of these other coaches have given other athletes, who come to me and they're
Hmm.
considered top elite coaches, and it's like, man, like it's so rewarding knowing that I'm giving the highest level of service possible. And like,
Hmm.
if I continue to do this, which I will for months and years on end, like, I'll be able to help more people than, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I think that shameless plug. I mean, we're here to raise the bar for the industry. Like that's our goal, whether it be with Coaches Corner University and the education we provide, or whether it be with Master Athletic Performance and the coaching that we provide. We're trying to raise the level of standard for what coaching should be for our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a number of clients recently who voiced, and maybe this is another question. We didn't have this on the list, but like I'm seeing more and more clients coming to me with very bad coaching experiences prior to our company.
Yes.
And honestly, while it's great because I can say, hey, your experience with us is going to be a lot better,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's disheartening. It's
Yeah.
really disheartening to know that people are charging what they're charging and providing the poor support for people. How do you how do you reconcile that within yourself? Like do you use that as fuel? Does it upset you?
There's a couple of things. I mean, I've had some athletes come to me who are, pro caliber bodybuilders, and they come from other coaches and they tell me what the experience, what the protocols were like, and how everything was handled. And it definitely was discouraging because it makes it seem like there is such a tiny bit of people in the fitness community that coach who actually care, which
Yeah.
the margin is actually probably greater than what it seems that sometimes, getting so much negative feedback. But at least from what I've seen, and what you've even seen, you can probably agree saying, hey, like our level of coaching that we're providing is very different from just a normal
Yeah.
coach. So, you know, it makes me want to continue to do better, and just it makes me just want to continue to always deliver the highest quality service. And there's no better feeling, when I have people come to me who've been with me for, a week or two or three, and
Yeah.
they've come from other, well-known coaches, and they're like, hey, like I just want to tell you thank you so much for like how you treat me, the time you spend with me, like you critique all my poses every check-in, like you really care. And
Yeah.
I just had an athlete sign up last week, and she told me, she was like, hey, like one of the things that really stands out is like I don't feel like I'm just a number with you. Like
Mhm.
other coaches have had in the past, it's been like if you're not a competitive athlete at the highest level and one of the best athletes, you're kind of just there. You're not getting attention that you need to be better. I'm like, no, I treat everyone the same.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. That makes me feel really happy to know that you feel that way. And I feel that way too. I mean, one of the best compliments you can get, like I got a compliment from a guy last week that was like, man, I've spoken to you more in the last 3 weeks than I did in the last 6 months with my previous coach. I
Yeah,
was like, well, first of all, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Like, I'm genuinely sorry that that was your experience with your previous coach. But I'm glad that you see the value that we add.
hmm,
And when this is a lesson for all the coaches that are listening, if you put your people first, your business will grow. That is
100%.
a hard, fast rule. And if you can do everything possible to put your people first in every instance, you will be just fine.
Hmm.
And the way that you can potentially impact that person in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term is going to be really profound.
Yeah.
Um, how many clients have you had that come to you and they're like, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but they're not anywhere close to that now, but you see it within them. And then you work with them for a little bit and they start to see the results that they feel like they wanted from the beginning, but were never given the time.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's always a great thing because then it makes them believe in themselves. And,
Yeah.
like, one female athlete I coach, I mean, she just dealt with 405 for the first time, super, super easy. And she's like, I never thought, yeah, she's like, I never thought I could pull, over 315 in my warm ups, super easy, beltless, and, be able to hit the numbers I'm hitting now. Like, you've kind of just like revived my entire belief in myself, as an athlete. And
Hmm.
it's great to hear that, and it gets me pumped up. I get more excited about my athletes' success than my own more most of the time. So, it's always cool, seeing them hit PRs and um, just get wins. It could be the smallest things, you know what I mean? And um, like I'll have some of my athletes message me and be like, "Hey, coach, like I just want to tell you, like pendulum squat went great today. Hit PRs on it, like the strongest I've ever felt. I just want to tell you thank you."
I love that.
Yeah, and
I
just
love that.
very kind, simple message, but stuff like that is what makes coaching fun.
100%. The next question that I have, so this was from a client, but I think we can both speak on it as coaches as well. So let's start on the client side.
Hmm.
Especially when it comes to prep, there is a lot of demand on time.
Yeah,
What are some tips for time management that you could give an athlete in prep or in off season that have helped you?
for time management, it just comes down to two things. One, when you're in prep, you're going to notice like you're going to wake up earlier. Just in most cases, how it is because your
Oh yeah.
your sleep's not going to be very deep. The deeper you get in the prep, and just body fat levels come down. If you're taking any stimulants, stuff like that, it does play a big role. So um, you just get up earlier and you're like wide awake, so you tend to just get your day started. So like now, for people who have more time constraints, when it comes to their job, kids, other requirements, it comes down to just planning ahead. Like you got to think ahead. One of the easiest sayings, is if you fail to prepare, you prepare and fail.
Hmm.
So it just making sure that you're getting things done accordingly. So if you know you're not going to be able to cook your meals for 2 days because of your work and you won't have time, well, then prepare your meals for the next 2 or 3 days and then you're taken care of. Or if you're
It sounds so
traveling,
simple.
yeah. But really, this I broke it down like this to someone. I had a client tell me they ate Chipotle 3 days in a row because they didn't have time to cook. I said the amount of time it took for you to DoorDash your Chipotle, you could have cooked beef and rice. Could have cooked rice and chicken. You could have cooked your meals. Is the point? I'm
Yeah.
like you could turn your rice
You just
cooker
save
on
money.
and save money. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm like it would have saved you money and saved you time. Um, but it's easy to pull your foot up and click a button and then your food's delivered. You know, but
Hmm.
you got to think like control what you can control. Like those are the variables that are important. And for me, like in prep, like my mentality um, is like if I would lose that show or not place where I wanted to place, and I can look back and pinpoint places I didn't execute and get things done that could have played a role, I'm going to beat myself up over that. Now, is that the right
Yeah,
thing
for
to do
sure.
mentally? No, it kind of wears on you, but like that's my approach. I tell myself throughout a contest prep or throughout a day to day routine is like I need to do the right things to make sure I'm succeeding in all the aspects. As an athlete, as a coach, as a person, just everything. I'm not perfect. Yes, there's times I don't get stuff done, but as long as I'm waking up and doing what I need to do,
Hmm.
that's all you can ask.
I totally agree. With time management, it comes down to managing your time. Like as simple as that sounds, like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
you have a certain amount of time in the day.
yeah.
The first strategy that I always implement, whether in business or in prep scenario or training, whatever it might be, I standardize my day. So I make sure that I wake up at the same time every day and I go to bed at the same time every day. And that helps me allocate the time that I need to the things that need my time. So if I know that every day I'm waking up at 5 a.m.,
Hmm.
and I know that sounds early, but I also go to bed by 10.
Yeah.
So, if I'm up every day at 5 a.m., that means by 6 a.m., I'm on the elliptical. By 7 a.m., I'm off the elliptical and I've had a shower. I can eat my first meal. And then by 10 a.m., I can get to the gym. And then by, 12:30, I'm sitting at my desk eating my meal, getting into my emails.
Hmm.
And then I do that for the rest of the day, get my steps in at my desk with my walking pad, whatever it might be. And by the end of the day, I've checked all my boxes. But that's only because I planned ahead and I
Yeah.
standardized that day.
Hmm.
The other thing is I live in my schedule. I think most people really undervalue having a schedule. So the strategy that I use with the schedule, so we use Google Calendar as a
Hmm.
company. So in my Google Calendar, I will actually book meetings with myself for the things I need to get done. So from 6 to 7, there's a meeting for cardio.
Yeah.
From eight to 11, there's a meeting for me to train. From 7 to 8, there's a meeting with myself to get my meal and drive to the gym. So like all of these things are booked into my schedule as meetings because I know that like, you and I have a meeting at 2:30 to record a podcast. I'm not going to miss my meeting with Jaden.
Yeah.
So why would I miss my meeting with myself? I'm not going to I'm not going to place more importance on Jaden as I would myself.
Yeah. No, that's
And when you
a great point. Just because like something I personally sometimes struggle with is
Mhm,
like I just have the tendency to be very, very selfless. So um, it's a great thing for me as a coach and helping other people, but also too like you told me before, like getting into the Olympia, winning a pro show, it's not going to happen on its own. I got to be able
nope.
to take action to get that done. So I've tried to really strategize my day a lot better
Mhm,
to be able to get the meals in, to be able to get all my steps in, train and not be rushed, things like that. And going to the gym, when I go to the gym, I usually turn my phone on do not disturb so I can just
mhm.
focus on training because if not,
Great.
I'll literally be replying to clients. I'll be looking at the videos of training. I'm like, this has to be the time that I'm putting towards like my own training so I can be productive and get out of here when I need to so I can get home. I'm like, and when you told me, prioritize your time and be very intentional with your time, like that was a good way for me to shift my focus with that.
Yeah. One thing I also want to say too, on that same note, something that you do very well, and I think most of us could take a lesson out of is if you're having trouble managing your time or there's a lot of things on your plate, don't be afraid to ask for help. Right. And what I mean by that is so Jaden works for us in Master Athletic Performance. There have been times where he's like, hey, I need a little bit more time to do this. Or hey, I can't get to that until this date. Is that okay? And to me, that's asking for help. That's saying, hey, I have a problem. I need you to solve it for me. Can you do that? I will always say yes. And I'm in a Jaden's not married, but my wife is someone who I ask for help from all the time. Like Liv is someone who I rely on heavily when I need her help.
Yeah.
And that's a huge aspect of time management that I think goes overlooked is being able to ask for help because you don't have to do everything by yourself. You know, so Um, that was great. Next question. What blood markers are the most important to monitor? Whether you're a natural athlete or an enhanced athlete, what are some things on your client's blood work? Maybe we'll go one by one. Some things that you look at.
Yeah, so if someone's natural or not natural, I always have them get a comprehensive metabolic panel. So
Hmm.
I just want to see how everything's looking, and I want to see how your blood markers are in general. So like, I want to look at your lipids, I want to look at your hemoglobin, hematocrit, I want to look at your red blood cell count. More importantly, with your red blood cell count, I want to look at your platelet count, see where that's at. This is more along the lines for someone who's enhanced, just so I can see where those are at based off what they're taking. Um, and then, of course, I'll also add in a thyroid panel if it's not already listed on the panel. So I want to see where your T4 is, your T3, TSH, all that. Total testosterone if you're a male athlete, even a female athlete. I want to see where those are at. Estradiol, progesterone, prolactin. Um, I mean, all of them are important, especially if someone's in a prep. Like if we're running, oral compounds, I want to see where AST's at, ALT's at, creatinine, all that. That goes hand in hand.
Hmm.
Off season, if it's if we're getting deeper in off season, carbs have been pretty high. I definitely want to see look at your thyroid.
Hmm.
Because the higher your carbs get, obviously your thyroid can down regulate a bit. So just being very cautious with that, making sure even if we're doing cardio and we're doing things to make sure your insulin sensitivity is in a good spot and everything is being processed correctly, like it's always good to double check because you want to optimize everything as much as you can. And like a common thing I've seen with natural athletes when I coach them through a bodybuilding prep, as you start to deplete and get peeled and your body fat goes down, I see their thyroid will start to downregulate, towards the deeper end of that prep. And I always want to throw in a thyroid support if it's not already in. And of course, once we get some fats back in there and we start reversing out and the food comes up and everything, you start to see the thyroid get back in a better range. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, major organ systems are the ones that you're going to want to pay the most attention to for me. So you're looking at your heart, you're looking at your thyroid, you're looking at your liver, and you're looking at your kidneys.
Hmm.
Um, as you mentioned, the lipid panel to me is super important,
Yeah.
especially if it's a high stress situation. So a natural athlete in prep or a enhanced athlete when they're on cycle,
Hmm.
those lipid numbers are going to skew. So you're going to have HDL come down, so that good cholesterol come down. You're going to have that LDL come up, and that's going to put you in the opposite scenario that you want to be. And there's a lot of things from a nutrition perspective that we can do, right? We can increase fiber. We
Hmm.
can increase polyunsaturated fats, like as you mentioned earlier, olive oil, omega 3s.
Yeah.
Um, then, from a kidney perspective, are we hydrating effectively?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
That's a
simple.
big one. It's like, are we drinking enough water?
Hmm.
Um, how's our blood pressure? If your
Yeah.
blood pressure is elevated, kidney is going to be working way overtime.
Yeah.
Same thing with insulin and fasted blood glucose. Like if our fasted blood glucose is chronically high,
Hmm.
our kidneys are going to be working extra hard to filter out that glucose.
Yeah.
And if you combine that, poor insulin sensitivity and high fasted blood glucose with high blood pressure, man, you're in for a really tough time long term.
Yeah.
So like all that said, all the nuts and bolts, the one thing I will say on this with regards to blood work is just a snapshot in time. And it's very, very, very malleable. So we can make a ton of changes and we can see fluctuations in those blood levels of different markers. But what we're looking for in the long term is trends. And this is something that I think gets ignored a lot of the time. People will be like, oh, my blood work's good. That's fine. It's like, yeah, your blood work's good. You're not on cycle or you're in an off season and you're natural. Food is high, stress is low. But how bad was it 3 months ago when you were at the tail end of prep?
Yeah.
Do we know that? And if we're seeing that those off season numbers are good, but year over year they start to trend down,
Hmm.
that's an indicator that something's going on. So keeping detailed notes on trends with regards to blood work is
Yeah.
super, super important.
Yeah. And like I have my labs from like 4 years ago, like
Yeah.
still having copies of them because I can go back and look year after year after year how like my body has changed throughout preps, how it's improved, and I can see everything. And I think that's important to have because like what you were doing during that time frame, like
Hmm.
if you're in a prep or an off season, what you were taking, you can look back and see that, and then also I can go look at like how things are now in the off season or me going into a prep, and it kind of gives me a baseline. So having those numbers as like your baseline numbers, if you're natural or not, is important because then from there we can adjust. You can go from there, and it kind of lets us know like, hey, this is like pretty much homeostasis. right
Yep.
in here, and then like that's like kind of like the starting point. If someone's like not had blood work done previously.
Yeah, most blood work companies. So up here in Canada, we have Life Labs and Dynacare.
Mm.
Down there, you guys have LabCorp is the big one.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, they work with Merrick Health.
Yeah, so if you subscribe to their online platforms, you can usually click on your blood work, and if you click on a certain marker, it'll track trends over time, so you can see those fluctuations. So like I do
Yeah.
my blood work with Life Labs, and anytime I get my blood work done, I can go in and go to, okay, what was my testosterone here at this point? What was my testosterone here at this point? Where was my ALT and AST at these points as well? Can
Hmm.
I make correlations? And then you can start to make some really informed decisions on how to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just being more detailed oriented goes a long way. Okay, last question, and probably one that we could talk about ad nauseum, but how do you know if you're doing enough volume to grow?
Yeah, that's a good question. The biggest thing is like as a coach, it, me personally, when I train, I do pretty moderate volume with high intensity, as your
Mhm.
body doesn't know how many sets you're doing, how many reps you're doing, doesn't know what movement you're doing. It just knows how hard you're training. So like
Mhm.
the amount of effort you're having to give. What I've seen as a coach with a lot of athletes, almost majority who've come to me, they're doing tons and tons of volume. Like I'm talking like
Yeah.
four sets of like 10 to 15 reps on hack squats. And I had reframed them to think this way, like what would happen if you cut it down to two top sets and you gave everything you had?
Mhm.
You're like, yeah, like my intensity would be higher. I'm like, yes, because those last two sets is nowhere close to the level of intensity you had the first two sets if you're giving the best effort you can.
Right.
Or you're sandbagging the first two sets and then you get to the last two sets and you're ramping things up. So you're doing aimless volume that's equaling out to more volume, which is causing potentially more fatigue, more energy output that's not being geared towards actually driving hypertrophy and getting the most out of your session. Um, like for me personally, like when I train arms or let's say, so for me, I do two push sessions throughout the week, right? So my triceps are getting plenty of involvement. So me personally, I only do probably a total of probably 5 to 6 working sets throughout the week for triceps.
Yeah, I think I'm at like 6 or 7.
Yeah,
But I only do one push workout a week.
yeah. So that's honestly pretty much it. And then for like biceps, I'm around the same. So it's not a crazy amount of volume, but my intensity is high and I'm growing great. And this is the best I've grown the last few years from keeping my volume moderate versus doing tons and tons of volume with sets that aren't getting me better. I'm not able to drive performance. And like you know how important performance is when it comes to correlating muscle growth and also tracking parameters when you're in the prep. Like if your performance is dropping off massively and you're in contest prep, that's a huge indicator. Hey, then potentially you're losing tissue here. You're not
Mhm.
getting the most out of everything you're doing. So like when you see performance kind of just be stagnant or a slight drop in prep when you're dieting towards the end, that's expected as your overall like body mass is like lower. Like you're just not as big as you were. You can't brace as much. Like yeah, performance on your compounds will drop off. Stuff like that's expected. With lower food. So those are ways to look at it. And also too, like more is just not always better. More equates to just being more you have to
Mhm.
recover from. So just being very intentional is kind of honestly the best way to put it.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about performance being a driver because for me, the volume conversation always comes down to performance.
Yeah.
So let's assume like food is stable.
Hmm.
If you're getting stronger week after week after week after week, yeah, you're doing plenty of volume. And in very, very rare circumstances, is the answer ever more?
Yeah.
Like,
No, yeah, I agree.
very rarely will I work with a client and say, like, hey, I think you need more volume to get stronger. And
Yeah.
because we're always using that performance as a proxy for muscle gain. Because if you're getting stronger week over week, the chances of you increasing tissue, yeah, you're going to be getting bigger,
Yeah.
plain and simple. Um, when you're in a dieting scenario, you're not trying to grow.
No.
You're just trying to maintain that performance.
Yeah.
So using performance as a proxy is by far going to be your best indicator of whether you're doing enough. I've heard this. I've heard numbers thrown around like, oh, you need X number of sets to grow, or this and that. The actual range of total sets that someone needs to grow is anywhere from 6 to 30, depending on the muscle group.
Yeah.
That's insane. So
Yeah.
and if you're doing 30 sets of something, I guarantee you train like an absolute pussy.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. It's no
Like,
way you're giving.
and the other factor here is frequency, right? So you
Yeah.
mentioned you're training push twice a week.
Yeah.
You can't do, even though you're training twice a week, you can't do as much volume in each session because you have to hit that muscle group again.
Yeah. No,
So
absolutely.
when you factor in frequency into the equation, like I'm training legs twice a week.
Yeah. Same
And
here.
I'm not talking like I do quads one day and hams the next day. I'm telling like I train full leg workouts twice a week right now.
Yeah.
The total volume of those sessions, like I'm doing three sets of hamstring curls, 2 sets of adductors, 2 sets of leg press, 2 sets of pendulum, and 2 sets of single leg RDL. So that's 11 sets. That's plenty of sets for lower body. And I do that twice a week.
Yeah.
I don't do the same movements, but I do that same total volume twice a week.
Which is
It's
which
like,
is plenty.
yeah, that's plenty. So
Yeah.
that's 22 sets of legs.
Yeah.
I'm going to grow. I'm
No,
fine.
yeah. Yeah.
And you know what I'm going to do when I actually reach a plateau and I stop getting stronger? I'm probably going to pull sets off.
Yeah.
That pendulum will probably go down to 1 set,
Yeah.
right? That leg press might come down from 2 sets to 1 set. And maybe I'll add in another set of extensions or something to make it up,
Yeah.
but it'll be
Which,
on an exercise that's a little easier.
yeah, that or worst case, like if you do one back off set on pendulum, it could be like a tempo, like a negative or something with like a
Yeah.
pause, So there's like routes you can go with that too.
Dude, I'm actually in a situation right now where I'm getting strong so fast, it's scary.
That's good, but that's what I noticed when I came back when I was injured and I tore my quads. The
Yeah.
strength aspect comes back super quick. You're just like getting super strong, and I was like, oh wow, this is crazy.
It's actually scary because like I'm moving better than I was pre-surgery, but like the leg press, my range of motion is better, but I'm already hitting 8 plates for like 15, 20 reps.
Yeah, but then
And I'm
you
like,
ask yourself, like, do I really need to go like 9, 10, 11, 12 plates or whatever?
but here's the other thing too, is that leg press is
Yeah.
4th in my workout.
Oh yeah, so think if you did it like first or second.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going to
You'd
happen?
be
Like
doing like a ton.
like my pendulum, I did 3 plates yesterday for
Mhm.
15 on my back offset.
Oh wow, that's good.
And I did that after doing seated leg curl, adductors, and banded quad focus leg press.
Oh dang.
So like, I'm like, man, like this is great. And my legs are
Yeah.
actually coming back pretty good. So as long as, until I'm stronger than Liv, I'm still quote unquote rehabbing,
Yeah.
but
She's not the normal woman either though. So
I know
yeah.
you trained with her, so you know.
Yeah, yeah, no. I know.
Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this Q&A with me. And as usual, we'll have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes. You're at the Arnold this weekend hanging out?
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there Friday, Saturday, probably Sunday as well. So I'll be at the expo and show.
Do you have any clients competing this year or no?
No, I do not. I don't have anyone competing. Last few years, I've had some people do the XPC meet in
Yep.
powerlifting, so I don't have anyone competing, and then no one in the Arnold Amateur or Pro show, so just
Is the
chilling.
XPC meet actually happening?
I think.
Dude, that fell off so hard.
Yeah, I know. It was. It's not. It's on the X. Yeah, it is happening because I do have a buddy. His wife's doing it. She's competing Saturday, but it's on the expo floor, as you
Oh, the
saw
same as
last year.
last year with,
Last year,
oh my
yeah.
God, that was bad.
Yeah, it's it's not like in the little back area, like in the where it was like catered off. That was way better when it was back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh man. Well,
yeah,
listen, I wish I was there. We had our passports taken from us for our visa application, but we got them back yesterday. So I guess we could have gone,
it'd
but
been super last minute though.
it would have been super last minute. But listen, I hope you have a great time and look forward to chatting again soon.
All right, too. I appreciate it, dude.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All
Bye.
right, see ya.